Welcome back to Unspoken Emotions, the podcast where the parts of us we've kept hidden finally get the space, the compassion, and the language they've been waiting for. I'm Rachel, and today's conversation is one so many of you have quietly asked for without even knowing it. If you've ever felt like you were somehow behind, even when you were trying your hardest, if you've ever felt masked so well that no one knew you were drowning, if perimenopause hit like a freight train and turned the volume up on everything you thought you'd outrun, then this episode is going to feel like someone finally switched the lights on. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Blair Pfeiffer. Blair is a therapist and coach, but before she became that woman, she was the girl who never quite fitted in, the young woman surviving a violent relationship, the student carrying ADHD she didn't know she had, and later, the mother facing an unexpected pregnancy at 6 months and navigating the heartbreaking beauty of open adoption. Blair was late diagnosed with ADHD in her late 30s, right as perimenopause arrived, and suddenly her entire life made sense. The struggles, the masking, the dangerous relationships, the exhaustion, the never feeling good enough. Her story is layered, raw, and unbelievably brave. Blair, thank you so much for being here today. How are you feeling as we begin?
I'm good. This is bright and early this morning, so I am feeling like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Ready to go.
Ready
Good.
to
Full of
go.
energy. Okay, Blair, I want to start by just going right back at the beginning with that little girl who had friends, yet always felt a step behind. Can you just kind of paint a picture for us? Like, what did childhood and adolescence feel like on the inside, socially, academically, emotionally, before you had language for ADHD or masking?
Yeah, I just always knew I was different. I have two older sisters. They're not that much older than me, but there's three of us, and I was the young one, and I kind of marched to the beat of my own drum. I was always outside. We grew up with lots of like wooded areas around us, and I was always outside. I was a big Barbie girl, and I would drag my Barbies out into the creek that was in front of our house. And, I wasn't using our Barbie dream house. I was building, my own little dream houses out of my desk and things in my bathroom. And we had like double sinks in my bathroom with my sister, and like one was the hot tub and one was the pool. So I was like always the like think outside the box, which when I was a kid, I didn't think that was weird. That was just my creative brain just functioning in a different way, and just in, doing the things that I loved. I liked being outside. I liked running around in the woods and building forts with my friends in the neighborhood. And we didn't think it wasn't weird. It wasn't
Yeah.
dangerous. Even though we were little girls, it was just like what you did in the 80s.
Yeah, of course. I remember doing those crazy things too. But they didn't, it all seemed normal back then. I mean, it was just, even now, to do that now, I mean, there's nothing that's screaming, there's something not right there, is there, of any of that now? If, for anyone listening who says, well, my little one does that, or, I don't see anything. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But my family kind of made me feel like, I mean, they weren't like mean about it, but they just were like, well, that's weird, because it wasn't things that they were into. And I was like, I come from a very conservative family. And from the time, and I mentioned this now to my family, I'm like, y'all, I've been preaching about this like global warming and climate change stuff since I was like 5 or 6 years old. I had this little book called like 50 Ways You Can Save the Earth. And I was like always going around to my family, like, we need to recycle. We need to like protect the
Oh,
earth. And they thought that was when I started to get the message of like, that's weird. Like, why would you care about that? And like, I don't even know why that felt so important to me, but it did. And I started to get that messaging of like, well, this isn't normal. Like, most people don't care about this stuff. And I didn't know, because like I hadn't been really exposed to the world or to other
yeah.
people at that point, because I was, in elementary. And so I just, but I still felt that was important. Those things still are important to me today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't just grow up and come away from that. They're built in you then, aren't they? And
Yeah.
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 And you didn't know any different. So just
Yeah.
why is that so wrong though, isn't it? It's not, just because some of your friends are not doing that or your friends are not interested in that doesn't really
Right.
make you, like there is an issue with you. You've just got you're thinking about different things.
Yeah, think different. It's like different interests. Like when I
Yeah.
talk to people now, it's just like, oh, okay, like you're just into different things. That may not be something I'm interested in, but I love to see people light up about things that just excite them. And
Yes.
I love to hear people talk about, even if it's something that I don't understand. Like I had a therapy client years ago come in and tell me how they wanted to be an astrophysicist and talk to me for 45 minutes about space. And I love space. I'm fascinated by space. So I can I know a little bit of the language, but I don't know like the science behind it, and was like explaining stuff to me about like, and I was just, I mean, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, this is the coolest. I was like, I have the coolest freaking job.
Oh my gosh.
Therapy or like, but it did, it helped that it was a teen client in it, and that client found confidence and in studying this stuff and learning about this stuff and knowing like that it's important to learn about this stuff. So it was just like that's what has like drawn me into my profession and kind of practicing the way that I do
Yeah.
in that space. Yeah.
Fantastic. Blair, there were two moments in your story that truly stopped
Mm-hmm.
me in my tracks when you first shared them with me. The
Yeah.
first was the violent relationship that you found yourself
Mm-hmm.
in. And the second was then discovering, separately to this, but then discovering that you were 6 months pregnant at a
Mm-hmm.
time when your whole life felt like survival. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
those in
Mm-hmm.
themselves are just enormous emotional loads to carry. So when you look back now through the lens of a woman who's done the healing, worked on herself, what would you say was the loneliest or most terrifying feeling in those seasons for you?
I would say being in the domestic violence relationship. Fortunately, we were never married. We never lived together, but like my life revolved around him. We met in high school, and I guess I would describe myself as a late bloomer. Like I never had boyfriends. I was always interested in boys, and like my girlfriends and I would like talk about cute boys and things like that. But I never had boyfriends. I never had those types of relationships or really even close guy friends when I was in high school. And I wanted one so bad. And then I met, my ex boyfriend. He sat behind me in math class and was flirting with me, which I didn't really know was flirting at the time. But like, he started to flirt with me, and we kind of had a fling in high school and then broke up. But we still maintain contact. And he went off to college. He was a year ahead of me, and he went off to college and came back and would visit me, which I just thought was so, I was like, oh, this person is like, it was so cool. And,
As you do. We all do at that age, don't we?
and then I started college the next year, and we started dating my freshman year. And I was in a sorority, and I was like trying to find my own identity and do my own things, but he was always there, which initially I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is great. But very quickly it spiraled into a very controlling situation. And it was like always asking me, well, not really asking me for money. It was like demanding money from me and like making me feel bad. And it didn't start, it started kind of as like benign stuff. And then it, was like, buy me this, buy me that. And I thought that that was what I was supposed to do because I didn't know. I'd had one other relationship that, was another high school relationship, but it was a high school relationship. Like it was
Yeah.
hung out at each other's houses, like, that kind of thing. It wasn't anything like serious. And this felt like my first serious relationship. And I was like, oh, this is just, I didn't know any different. And
Mm.
I lost friends. Like I lost contact with friends because of it, because he isolated me. I was only friends with his friends. I actually, she's still one of my best friends today. Like she was actually dating his best friend, and we were like the only girls in the group. And if she was kind of intimidating to me at first because she was like tall, blonde, beautiful, and smart. And I was like, But she and I became very good friends, and she's one of the ones that kind of helped me get out of that and
Right.
really helped me to see how unhealthy it was, because I didn't know. I was, and she was like, no, this is not good, and really was like my safe space after that. And I mean, it got physical with him towards the end, like threw me down the stairs, like all this kind of stuff. I had a black eye at Christmas and like had to cover it up, and I had to like make up a lie. I mean, it was like the stereotypical thing that like battered women do. And I had to explain to my parents what was going on, and they finally somewhat figured it out. I don't think they really knew the depths of it. I've recently shared with my mom more about like how bad it was, that she didn't know because I was off at school and they weren't around and they didn't know, and I just pretended like everything was fine. And getting out of it, like it's another reason why I went into this career path, because I am a domestic violence advocate now for other women and other people in general, because it doesn't just happen with women, like, and really helping them to find safe ways to escape those dangerous relationships, and really understanding it's not so easy all of the time, especially if you're married or have kids, or there's so much more that goes into it. Because it was, I realized that I was a sexual assault survivor because of it. I realized I had been a victim of financial abuse, of emotional, psychological, like physical, all the different kinds, after getting out of it and getting into my own therapy and starting my own therapy. That really opened my eyes of like, oh, wow, that was a lot worse than I realized. You don't realize when you're in it, and then when you step back and you're reflecting on it and processing and healing from it, like you're like, oh wait, that was a lot worse. And obviously I don't wish I had gone through it. I don't wish anyone, but it really informed my relationships with my friends, my family, and other partners moving forward after
Mm.
that, like noticing those red flags earlier.
Do you think there was, would you say there was a turning point where you finally sort of found the courage, the strength, or picked your moment where you left?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was really with my friend. It was like I started getting really close with her, and she and I started doing stuff on our own. And it was like I started finding my own identity again. I feel like I had lost that. And we were just in this place of like being girls, being young 20 something girls. And that really showed me like to lean on my friendships and to really foster my friendships with my girlfriends, and how important those things were to me. And around that same time I met my college girlfriends that I'm still all, we have group text and we still text to this day, and we've been friends for over 20 years now. And I think that moment was like really appreciating those people who really helped me to come out of my shell and to find myself again, and really like know who I am and stick true to those values.
What
So,
was the person, what was the person like who, when you came out of that relationship, who were you then? What were you like when you first came out of that? What was the impact of being in that relationship? What did that impact have upon you, have upon your limiting beliefs?
yeah,
Did you develop limiting beliefs rather? What was the impact that it had on you?
I was a shell. I was like just not, I mean, now looking back, obviously I can see that, but I was a shell of myself. I really wasn't fully who I was. I was forcing myself to do things, which ultimately then helped me. But at the time, like I didn't know this. I wasn't diagnosed, but like I was severely depressed, and I had PTSD. Like I still consider myself someone that's diagnosable with PTSD. And so I learned that after the fact, but I was a shell of myself. I was not confident. I was like doing everything else that my friends were doing, which ultimately I figured out were like the things that were important to me. I was like, these are why they're my friends. We have these things
Yeah.
in common, and they pull this out of me. But at the time, I was so afraid. I was so scared to do anything. And And then I started, I had my friends, but then I built this confidence and I started to do things by myself that even they were like, whoa, like you're really stepping out, like traveling by myself and like doing things that they were like, oh man, I could never do that. And I'm like, I mean, you could, but you just don't want to. And that's okay. Like, I'm not telling you have to do anything that you don't want to do. I really like stopped caring, and it was like they were kind of the platform that just kind of propelled me into this next phase of my life, essentially.
Mhm. So how long do you think it took you to essentially get back to you or rebuild your life from coming out of that relationship?
I would say, so this is kind of a funny story. So so there was that abusive relationship. Then there was a partner that was in between that partner and the partner that is the birth father of my child. And in that in between relationship, so I was still kind of connected to the abusive partner. And we had planned to go on a trip to go to a concert out of town. And we went, and I ended up meeting my next boyfriend in front of him. And I had already like built this confidence. And this other guy was like, he didn't even, we had like met through like internet like message board that was like this band's internet message board of like fans that hey, we're going to this show, you want to meet up with us? And this guy reached out to me, he's like, hey, my friends are coming, if you're still coming, like come hang out with us. Like, he was not pressuring me to like come stay with them. It was like, I don't even care where you're staying, like here's where we're come meet up. It was very cool. And then my ex, of course, still came along, and I met my next boyfriend in front of him, and it was like the biggest like.
I love it.
And it empowered me. It was like, oh, okay, like I don't have to let this person who has told me for years you could never do better than me, I'm the best you'll ever get. Like it really it showed me internally, and then I like was able to like be like, see, there's other people. I mean, this other guy treated me so well, was so nice. His friends were so nice to me. And like, then there was this person who was standing back, and I could just tell he was like seething. And like, he didn't talk to me for like the rest of the trip, which I was totally fine by.
Yeah. That's a bonus you didn't ask for, but hey, you'll take it.
I was like, oh, I'm working out great. Like,
Yeah.
I met new friends, I met new people. And like, when I was able to basically finally give the last like send off to this jerko who had
Yeah.
tried to control me for so many years. So that was really like a pivotal moment for me.
Good on you. Good for
Mhm.
you. Good for you. Uh, and then, so then there was another incident in your life
Mhm.
where you were pregnant and you didn't
Mhm.
find out you were pregnant until you were about 6 months pregnant.
Yeah,
So,
I know that always shocks people when I say that. They're like, "Oh." It was like I felt like I kind of knew, but I was in my last year of undergrad, and I was in art school, and I was studying interior design. Did a whole career change when I became a therapist, but I was in my last year of design school, and I was having to do like a senior thesis, and I was spending so much time with my friends. Like the friendships that I built, I say that like the domestic violence relationship was the loneliest because I didn't really have a lot of my own friends and my own sense of identity. My pregnancy and my adoption story, while it was obviously very traumatic and very hard and a really tough decision, it was like when the people that I needed to show up for me really showed up for me during that time. And it was like, because I had spent so much, well, I didn't really spend that much time. It was only like a few years in between, but like in that time, I had really dedicated and really invested in those relationships and said, like, this is what I need. This is what's so important to me. And when I found out I was pregnant, it was at the end. I had graduated from undergraduate school. I was trying to find a job, and my mom was like, I think you need to take a pregnancy test. And I was like, and it was like, I feel like I knew, but my periods had been irregular. Like I'd never been a regular cycle girly. And like, so I was under a lot of stress from trying to finish undergrad with a senior thesis and spending time with my friends and trying to enjoy my last year of knowing after this, like, I'm not going to have my friends right next door. And so it was like, I just had so much going on and I was in denial. And then at the end of my senior year, like after I graduated, I found out I was pregnant, and I was a lot further along than I really thought, because I really didn't get that big. And at that point, I obviously didn't have any other options aside from having her. And I knew, even though my parents were extremely supportive of me, even the night before she was born, we didn't know she was going to be born that day. She came a week early. But they were like, you can change your mind. But I just felt like adoption kind of fell in my lap. It was my boyfriend at the time, her birth father was also adopted. So we had tons of conversations about adoption just without even knowing what we were about to go through. And it just fit. Like his parents were extremely supportive. My parents were, we had the rare circumstance where all of our friends showed up for us. Like it was so beautiful. And it, as hard as that situation was and as traumatic as it truly was, it ended up like, because we had so much support, being one of the best things I have ever done in my life. And I don't regret it. Her family and I have had, our issues. They actually opened up the adoption to us. Like it was what's called semi-open, where all of our contact went through the agency initially, which we were like, we don't know how this is going to go. So that feels safe to us. We still want to get information, but it was like planned. It was like, you'll get updates at these points and it'll all go through the agency. You won't know each other's, addresses or full contact and that kind of stuff. And we were like, that feels safe to us. So we started out that way. And then we met them. And a month after she was born, they reached out to the agency and they were like, do you think she wants to have a meetup with us? And of course, I was like, yes. So gradually over time, our relationship opened up and we ended up spending time at each other's houses and it became completely open. But that also brought some trauma between us and things that probably still haven't been talked about that, I'm not really fully certain about. But she's now 21. She'll be 22 in August. And we are friends where we follow each other on Instagram and we talk about stuff. She messages me about stuff. We have each other's phone numbers, but kids these days always
Yeah.
messaging through social media, which I'm always on social media
Yeah.
anyway. So she'll message me stuff and ask me questions about relationships and all this kind of stuff. So she and I have built our own friendship now. And I feel as though she can come to me and can trust me with things. And I respect that, like, her parents are her parents. Like, I chose that. I relinquished my rights when she was born, and I don't regret that for 1 second, making that decision, because it has also enabled me to live and lead a life that I don't think I would have been able to. Even though I would have had my parents' support, it just wouldn't have been in the way that I wanted it to be and
Mhm.
what I really wanted her life to be. I didn't want her to have to struggle because I was struggling. I wanted her to have a fulfilling life. And I feel as though we both have. And I'm very proud of her and I'm very proud of me and I'm very proud of that decision. So that to me is, even though it was a pivotal thing, it was such a beautiful thing. And it's also what really prompted me to get into my own really true therapy. I went through 6 therapists when I was younger, trying to find the right one of all different types: male, female, Christian, non-denominational. I mean, I tried it all. Like nothing ever stuck. I never really clicked with any of them until I found, well, actually, I'm going to give credit to my mom. My mom actually found her. It was like a friend of my mom's friend somehow, and was like, we love her. We've worked with her before and we think she's a wonderful therapist. And I went to see her And at the end, she actually disclosed to me that she was also a birth mom. She had also placed a child for adoption, long ago when it was only closed. And it was like immediately I was like, okay, this person really understands what I've been through in a way that really no one else can. And I didn't really have that many people in my life. And I was able to really process the domestic violence relationship. I was able to really build off of that confidence that I had already built. And I was also at that time working in interior design, but it was an awful, awful job. It was awful. My boss, for some reason, did not like me and had it out for me and treated me terribly. And I was like, I have to get out of this situation, but I didn't know where to go or what to do. And that was when I started doing the work that I now do with my clients, where I kind of got back to my foundation. I got back to identifying what my chosen values were, what was important to me, what I wanted to do with my life. And I was going to therapy. I was doing speaking engagements for my adoption agency, just sharing my story. And I was like, I was driving home from a speaking engagement with my mom, and I was like, I could I could do this for work. And my mom was like, wait, what? And I was like, I could help people. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to become a therapist. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to help people. And she was like, wait, what? Wait, what? You're going to do a career change? And it was shocking to my family. They were like, wait, how are you going to do this? Like, how are you going to be able to support yourself? And now I have achieved exactly what I outlined for myself. I always was like, I want to have my own practice and do my own thing. And it was like, I did it. Like, it's been the best decision I've ever made and it gave me the confidence that I can make decisions on my
Mm.
own. I can do these things for me, even when other people are like, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's not a good idea. And I would be like, why? It's not telling
Why?
me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's your life, isn't it?
Bettering myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. I never understand people who just say, "Oh, what do you want to do that for? Why though? Why?" And just say, "Well, why don't you? How about you turn it back?" I find myself turning things back on people now when they're asking me that question. I'm turning it back. Why wouldn't you? And yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
It's
it's just
fear.
each to their own, isn't it? And that's what makes us all unique. But
It's fear though. That's what I've learned and
yes,
doing that with people and talking with people and people, because so after I finished grad school and I couldn't find a job, I lived in the state of Georgia. I couldn't find a job there. I wasn't really happy. I had a social life and my family was there and I grew up there, but I was like, I need something different. I need to go, I need to move. And I kept exploring all these different places to move. And I ended up moving to North Carolina, just one state above. It's where I still live to this day. I've lived here for almost 15 years. I don't regret it, but at the time, like, my family was like, "How could you move away?" Like, and my dad got really angry and upset with me, and I could tell he was hurt because he was like, "You're leaving us." And I had to explain to him, this isn't about you, it's about me just needing a different thing. And it was interesting. He kind of came around and was like, I could never do that. Like, I was always afraid to go that far away. So that's what I've learned. When people come back at you with that kind of stuff, it's usually that they're afraid of something in it. I took a solo trip to South Africa. Gosh, I can't believe it's now been like 8 years ago. I met up with like a travel group when I got there, but people even then were like, oh my God, you're traveling like halfway across the world by yourself? Like, you're getting
yeah,
on a 15-hour flight. And that's when I was like, you're afraid. That's okay. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, I
yes.
do this, but you're afraid, but like, don't put your fear on me.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. I think that is so true. I mean, yes, exactly. People do portray and try and put their fears onto you to try and stop you from doing what they're too scared to do. Just
Mhm.
because some people are too afraid to come out of their own comfort zone, they
Mhm.
almost begrudge or resent you for coming out of yours and having the courage to come out of yours. I mean, um, I actually traveled as well. Well, I traveled quite a few times, just myself and my daughter when I was a single mum, and she was 10 and 11 at the time. And I traveled from the UK to Thailand, was our first sort of long
Oh
haul trip together, just
yeah.
solo, just the two of us. And then another trip after that was from the UK to South Africa as well. And it was
Yeah.
just the two of us. And she was 11 at the time. And I can remember some members of my family literally having kittens going, why are you going to South Africa and a female on their own and with a child? You know, it was just like, oh my gosh,
Dare
what?
you? How dare you?
I know, I know. And when when we were going to Thailand for the first time, I remember there was so I think I can't even remember what I think we were traveling in the March and March or April maybe, and I think only a couple of months before that there was a big news article about people who had been kidnapped in Thailand, and my mum was going crazy about why are you going to Thailand, you know, done it, and I'm like, oh, there's people being kidnapped, and I'm like, Mum, there's people being kidnapped everywhere, you just don't hear about it. I said, and now that we're going to Thailand, I said there'll be, you know, just stop. We'll be
Right.
fine. And
We're gonna
as
be
long as you just got to risk assess yourself, haven't you? And I
Mhm.
think just you do you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd rather take the risk and do it. And just sort of assess my own risk and just say, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to be here. I'm not going to be traveling out late at night and things like that. You know, do all the things that you need to, especially when traveling with a child.
Yeah.
But still do it. You know, imagine not. And we've
Yeah.
seen some wonderful life changing
Yes.
things, you know, real life changing experiences,
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful things. And I think, imagine if we didn't take that risk.
Yes.
You just wouldn't know, would you? You would never see these things.
And
So,
people are always so amazed when I tell them the things that I've seen. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, I've actually like seen animals in their like
yes,
natural habitat, and I have a
yes,
major problem with zoos now. like I'm gonna be
yes,
the person that lets all the animals out of the zoo. I'm
yeah.
like, which I know that there are a lot of zoos that do a lot of good work and a lot of like captivity stuff, but like also at the same time, I'm like,
I
oh,
know, but you're also more aware then as well of the ones that aren't, isn't it? So,
yes,
yeah, it
yes.
does. It does. But yes, an eye opener. But yeah, the experiences. But one of the things before we move on to the
Mhm.
next part, I just want to just go back for a second and just highlight um, one thing that I felt was really important that you said, because a lot of people give up. But you said, and I've heard this a few times now, and I have mentioned it a few times. I've highlighted it a few times when it has been said because I think it is important. But you said I'd been through a number of therapists,
Mhm.
and the point is, like, you found one then. You came across one that was, you know, right for you. And I
Yeah.
think then when you did find that person that was right for you, you were able
Mhm.
to make all these changes, open up more, feel more comfortable, listen to yourself more, and deal with things more,
Yeah.
because you felt like you resonated. You could,
Mhm.
you know, just you had that connection with that particular therapist that you didn't have with the others. And I think that's one of the important things for our listeners is to, you know, because sometimes people will go, they'll see a therapist because so and so, a friend of theirs, has recommended them and say, oh yeah, so I went to see this counselor, or went to see this one or this therapist, and then they'll go and they think, oh gosh, no, not for me, and then they'll give up. And
Mhm.
they'll just assume, you know, make the assumption that they're all the same, or they're not going to have that kind of connection with
Mhm.
any of them, because that's what they're like. But the important thing is, if you don't like one, don't give up on it. Go and try and find someone else, and find someone else, and find someone else until you find the one that's right for you, because there will be one that's right for you. And you'd be doing yourself an injustice if you didn't. So, yeah, I
Yes.
just wanted to,
Yes.
yes.
And that's so when I start with my therapy clients, when they first come to me, one of the first things I always tell them is, if at any point I said, let's give it 3 sessions before we decide like this isn't working. And usually it does work. Like I have a really good filter and like am able to like really figure out if we're going to be a good fit, because I've been in this field now for almost 20 years. So it's like I've got a good read on people now and I can
Yeah.
tell. But I tell them, right away, I'm like, if at any point this isn't a good fit, you let me know and we'll either pivot what we're doing, or I will get you connected with someone who can. Like, I am a big person about collaboration, and we have so many good therapists in my community and across my state. And I'm like, I have built a great network of people that do all different kinds of therapy. I recognize my style is very unique. I'm a no nonsense therapist, but I'm also someone who really values building that relationship and tailoring therapy to the person. I don't just do the generic therapy. I make sure it's like, these are the things that you enjoy and that are important to you. Let's get back to that and
Yeah.
reconnect with that. But I leave the door open to my clients all the time. And it's interesting because in doing that, they immediately, they have told me this, they feel safe. They're like, I appreciate that you are very open in that way, and I trust that if I needed a different route, you would go in that way and you wouldn't fight me on it. And I'm like, well, no, this is your work, not mine. Like,
Yes,
and I
but you'd be
tell them that.
surprised. I know, but you'd be surprised, and I definitely think it just comes down to egos. You know, people and their egos. They're too, their ego won't allow them to think that they, you know, someone else is going to be better than them, or get through to that client in a way that you can't. It's just their egos. But if you leave that at the door and just actually think about the client, what means more, and
Yeah,
it doesn't even really matter, because you refer, if it's someone that you can't deal with, you're referring them to, you know, someone else. This time they're going to be referring someone back another time, you know, for exactly the same reason. So
yes,
it's the circle of life, isn't it? It's really,
yes,
but the fact that you know, you're very open about that is going to be really reassuring and
yes.
just disarming for anyone. You know, you can really feel at ease and comfortable for anyone coming to your sessions. So that's amazing and fantastic. Really
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic.
I had that, and I tell them, I'm like, it took me a long time to find the therapist that I worked with, and I'm like, I let them know, I'm like, I still do my work. I'm like, if you ever go to a therapist and they've never been in their own therapy, I'm like, run. They need to have done their own work to
Yeah.
be able to like help you get to where you need to be. And I'm honestly not surprised when I hear about therapists who are like, I've never been in therapy before. And I'm like, I mean, in my grad school program, it was like a requirement. Like, if you weren't already in therapy, you needed, because they were like, you need to know what it's like to be a client.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm already in therapy. So like, I've already got that checked off my list. But
Yeah. I
it's
think
a,
it I think that's exactly right, because I think there's some professions where you can just go along with the textbook, and what you learn in textbook, that's what you apply. But in these type of things, you know, you really do need that kind of experience behind you as well, so that your level of empathy, you know, and relation,
mm-hmm.
um your relatability is just it's just a different level. It's just a
Yeah.
different level. It brings a completely different dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
when you can say, I understand and I can empathize because I've got some experience of it, whether it be
Yeah.
firsthand or from somebody very, very close to them, you know. But the fact that they've got some level, and it's not just what they've learned academically, that okay, someone with this, you need to speak to them about this or train them in this or whatever. It's just that level of lived experience themselves. I think it really sets you apart.
Yes, it most definitely does. And I'm, self-disclosure in the therapy world is a very sensitive thing because we don't want to make it about ourselves, but I have found an appropriate use of self-disclosure has transformed some of my clients. I had a client who was very stuck one time and very anxious, and it was when I still did in person. I'm only virtual now, but I still in person, and just sat in front of me and I could just tell. And I finally let my own guard down because I was like, this feels appropriate to like what they're needing. And I shared a little bit of my story and I just kind of spoke very frankly and openly. And my client looked back at me and was like, oh, you really do get it. And I
Mm,
was like, I do. And I have been trying to like tell this client that, but like I knew it just wasn't translating and it just felt kind of, it was falling flat. And I was like, okay, this is where I got to back it up with like
yeah.
a little bit of like juice. And I
Mm,
shared a little bit of my story and they were like, oh no, you really do get it. And from there, they were just able to really open up and do some really great work. And I was like, there is such great benefit in just being vulnerable and sharing. You don't have to. I mean, I'm not telling details, and it's stuff I've
No.
already through, and I'm safe and comfortable with. And then they're like, oh, and I've done that a couple times with clients where they're
Yeah.
like, oh no, you do understand. Like, you don't understand obviously from inside me, but like you really do get it. And then it really helps them to feel that safety of like, this may be the first time where they felt safe opening up
Yeah.
about things and talking about certain stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes it's not is it can be as well about not the things that you say or share with them. It's just how you respond. They
Yep.
know.
Yep.
They know it can only that kind of response can only come from someone who's had that experience
Yes.
because other people just wouldn't understand it.
Yep.
If you hadn't had the experience yourself, you just wouldn't understand it. So sometimes it's just from how you respond. You don't always even need to share your own personal things. It's just
Mhm.
how you say something. Someone
Yep.
can immediately identify.
Yep.
Just stop in their tracks for a second and go, "Oh, she sounds or he sounds like they've been there. They've been there." Yeah. So
Yeah.
amazing. But just the absolute difference. Worldly difference that it can make when you have a therapist for sure that you totally feel comfortable with. So yeah,
Yeah.
don't
It's a
give
rela-
up is the answer.
it's
Don't
a
don't give up.
relationship. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
give up. Keep searching if you have that ability. Get referrals from other people, and that might not be the person, but then that also teaches you like what doesn't work. That was
yeah,
a lot of things where it was like, I want a therapist that's a woman because I feel like she understands the needs that I need to talk about. And I had
yes,
tried to work with male therapists, and I was like, there are great people. There was nothing wrong with about any of the people I worked with. It just wasn't what I was needing. And I
yes.
finally figured that out. And I was like, this is what feels safe and comfortable for the
And you
things
have
that
to go with that. You
yeah,
have to go with that. Yeah,
right,
because it's your therapy. So you have to go with
mhm,
what's right for you. So
the relationship. And
yeah,
that's what it needs to be. And you need to feel safe and comfortable because if you're not going to be honest. And if you're not honest with your therapist, you're not really doing therapy.
yes, yeah.
Maybe a hot take.
Yes, so true. Well, Blair, as if that wasn't enough, as if you hadn't been through enough, then comes the massive plot twist in your late 30s, a formal ADHD diagnosis, right as perimenopause began. So, what did that moment feel like in your body? Was it relief, anger, grief, validation? Because I know late diagnosed women often say it's like their entire life suddenly replays through a
Yeah.
new lens. But
Yeah.
what was that like for you?
It was validating. So validating because it was something I always knew from about the age of 12 when I was in middle school and developing different friendships and my friendships were getting closer and things like that. And I was hearing about and this was the mid 90s. And now looking back, knowing that they were just starting research on women, females, girls for ADHD in the 1990s. Like that's how recent it was.
Yes.
They didn't think that it was something that girls could have. And so I was like, well, now that makes sense as to why like no one believed me because it really wasn't as prevalent. Like there were girls that had it and were being treated for it, but it wasn't as like it is today. That's why so many women are being diagnosed in their adult years because it just wasn't being treated. We were being treated for other things. So when I was 12, I got diagnosed with a math learning disability, which I now know is called dyscalculia. So it's like dyslexia, but with numbers. And I still to this day mix up my numbers. I still struggle with math and driving directions and all this stuff that's created or connected to distances and math and anything like that. My brain just doesn't process those things in the same way. It takes me a lot longer. But I always knew I had ADHD. When I would hear other people talk about it, I was like, that sounds like me. And but never got treated for it, never got medicated for it. And then about my late 30s, I was in my relationship that I'm in now. I got married and I got married when I was 41. First marriage, He was never married either. We were little unicorns. And,
It's
and
rare. It's rare at that age.
it is very rare. And like safe, we were both like safe for each other. We've both been through trauma in our lives. And so I knew he was a safe space, but I was starting to feel this like increased anxiety again. And I was like, where's this coming from? Like, what's happening? So I was doing all this medical stuff, trying to figure out like where this was coming from, what could be happening. And I got connected with my doctor, who is probably the most magical doctor I've ever worked with in my entire life. She's wonderful. I absolutely cannot speak highly of her enough. She's just a couple years older than me, but also has ADHD and is in perimenopause. And she opened her own practice, and her office is at her house. It's like attached to her house, so it's almost like going and hanging out at your girlfriend's house when you go to the doctor. It's much more comfortable.
Nice.
Traditional settings. And
Nicer
so
waiting room.
yeah, it's like her guest house. We're like hanging out on the couch. Like, it was so great. She like feeds me snacks when I'm over there.
Yeah, I was going to say you'll even get a cup of coffee if you're lucky.
Oh, yeah. Like she's great. She does what's called direct primary care. So I pay like a fee every month to have like access to her, but I can literally text her anytime I want. But we were sitting there chatting just about my life, and she was like, I think you're in perimenopause. And I was like, what the hell is that? I was like, what? I was like, I'm not old enough for menopause. Like, that's old lady stuff. I was like, I'm not. She was like, and I had never heard that word before. I was like, what is this word you're saying? And she started talking to me about it and educating me about it. And then she was like, and this happened in the same day, she was like, and I also think that you're ADHD. She did a self-assessment, and I first took it. It was just like a little questionnaire, and I handed it back to her, and she was like, girl, how have you gotten this far in life? And I literally, it was like the like rainbow. I wish I could have like had a rainbow. I was like, masking. And she just fell out laughing. She was like,
I love it.
I am you and you are me. Like,
yeah,
very much the same. And it was just so funny. And she was just like, I just can't believe it. She was like, you are most definitely. And it was like, and I cried because I was like, I felt so validated. Like, it was so empowering. It was like, finally, I didn't need that formal diagnosis because I was self-diagnosed essentially. And I was treating myself in that way, but it enabled me access to medications, which that's a whole chaos story by itself. But like, I just felt so validated. It really, at the bottom of it helped me feel heard and seen and accepted, and like someone really heard the things that I was yelling about all of these years. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, this is me. And it was very validating. But I've had some clients who have gotten, diagnoses in their adult years of ADHD, and they had grief around it of like, I wish I had had these tools when I was younger. And I totally understand that too. Like, I'm like, man, I wish I would have had access to certain things. But it's like my viewpoint is like, I can't go back, but now I can create those tools for myself, or use the tools that I already have and readapt them to these new needs that I have, and really check in with myself and assess like, oh, okay, that explains this, or now I feel like I understand myself better because it's hormones, and our hormones are connected to every, receptor in our body, and they don't just connect to our reproductive systems.
Yeah.
A whole deep dive on perimenopause after I get full on like ADHD hyper. I was in here. My husband was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Researching hormones."
Oh my gosh, that's a double blow for you in one day.
What?
You're perimenopausal and you got ADHD. Wow.
Right. But it answered so many questions and helped.
Like you said, just such a liberating feeling for you though, because totally made you understand and appreciate how you'd been, like, was, answered, oh my gosh, that's that no wonder I was like this, because that just totally answers that.
I had tried, and now looking back on like those that domestic violence relationship and like those unhealthy spaces that I was in, I was trying to fit myself into what I thought I was
Yeah.
supposed to be, and realizing like, no, this it's not that these were bad things and
Yeah.
spaces, not the domestic violence relationship, but other places that I was trying to put myself in and trying to fit it was like square peg round hole. And I
Hmm.
was like, I don't fit into these places. They weren't bad, but it wasn't for me. And now it's like I'm finding myself connecting with people that are meant to be in my sphere and that truly take the time to like understand me.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. What do you think, Blair, for women who are listening right now, who might be feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated or burnt out or suspecting that they might be late diagnosed themselves? What's the one simple sort of nervous system regulating practice that actually helps you on the bad days? Just something that's not glamorous or performative, just real, I guess, and doable, whatever that might be. This is the danger zone now, is that?
I laugh because I have a lot, but like my thing, and it is coloring book.
Colouring. Yeah. That's become really popular.
It is. And it's funny because I've always been into it. And it was funny because one of my friends from college, she's like another sister to me,
Mhm.
when it kind of started to becoming super popular, like I always struggled to find coloring books, like adult coloring books. I always had to order them online and I would get frustrated because I am impatient and impulsive, ADHD, and wanted them right away. And like now I can go into the store and buy a lot of them.
Yeah.
And like she was like, oh, she was like, are you mad that like coloring is like trendy now? And I was like, hell no. I was like, now I can find coloring books at the grocery store. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, I have access to so many new tools. I was like, it's always been my thing. And now, yeah, it is super popular, but it's like I love it. It's like I can come in here and this is my office, but it's also like my craft room. It's my lounge. It's like a little movie theater that we kind of have evolved this little guest room into. And it's like I can come in here. I watch my true crime documentaries and I color and I just drift away. And I like for that momentary period of time, my brain is able to not think about my own stressors,
Mm.
and they don't go away. I still have to go back and address them later on, but it helps my brain to calm down and my emotions to calm down. And then I'm able to go back and handle those stressful things in a more effective way. So that's one of them. And then I always laugh because I'm a big science nerd and I love learning the biology behind like why we do certain things or why we recommend certain things. And I was always like, why do therapists always recommend like take a deep breath? Like I was like, oh, every time I got that recommended to me, I was like, that's so dismissive. So then I, being the nerd that I am, we have to do continuing ed for our license. So I took a neurobiology of anxiety course that has been the most impactful thing I've ever taken. And she talked about what happens when we breathe, like the science, like what it's doing to your
Mhm.
body quickly. And I was like, and I wrote out, I can send it to you and you can do whatever you want with that. I wrote out like what's literally happening in the parts of our brain, like in our amygdala and in our like cerebrum, our big thinking part of our brain, and how we process, and then what taking a breath and having the oxygen come into your body, what it's doing to your organs, and like all that kind of stuff. I've shared it with clients, I've shared it with friends. I shared it with a client one time who every time I recommended like let's do some deep breathing, they would always roll their eyes and I would be like, no, I totally get it. And then I like learned this and I shared it with them and they were like, no one has ever like talked about it in that way. Like
Yeah.
that really helps me to like know. And I'm like, yeah, it also helps you to have something else you're focusing on. When you're stressed, you're like, okay, I know the breath is the oxygen and it's my organs are doing this. Like I'm in fight or flight mode. This helps to re-regulate them. It's like facts, science. And it just so helps people. So when I say deep breathing, like I giggle to myself because I'm like, sound like a stereotypical therapist. I'm like, but no, let's talk about the science behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great that you've been able to share that coming from
Yeah,
someone who is such a cynic and skeptic about deep breathing, just like, what do you mean deep breathing? Oh, here we go again. But it's like, please just make it stop.
yes,
But yeah, when you like how you changed your whole outlook on that because you then read and understood the actual science behind it,
yep,
and then you got on board with that. And now that forms part of your
yeah. Helping,
your daily or also practices. So yeah, what a
mhm.
difference.
Yeah, and helping people understand the science behind stuff. Like I'm a perimenopause coach, and that's a lot of like the stuff that I incorporate into that too is like understanding the science between like the connection between estrogen and dopamine. And when I tell people that, like even when even when I'm having like normal everyday conversations, I'm still talking about this stuff. And people are like, wait, what? Wait, that's connect. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know that either. I'm like, but it makes sense. Like, you're like, yeah, of course it is. Of course
Yeah.
that fully makes sense. Like when you think about it. So when you get into the science and the biology of it, like it's it's like, oh yeah, okay. And then it helps people to just to see it from a different point of view of like, I'm not just making this up in my head. This is actual biology that's happening inside my body, and then here's some things that you can do about it.
Yeah, I think when people understand things in every aspect, really, when people understand things, have a better level of understanding, they're able to get on board with something a lot more, sort of full feet in rather than just dipping their toe in and just not really believing in it.
Yep.
Once you fully understand something, until then, you're just doing it on trust, I guess, or sometimes, winging it. But when
Mm-hmm.
you fully understand something, then
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when you're truly vested and
Yeah.
yeah, you
No,
truly believe in it.
I'm a big fact based person. Like I
Yeah.
like knowing the facts behind stuff, and I think that also helps people. And part of the therapy that I practice is very much like there's a whole thing in it, like check the facts. And a lot of my clients really resonate with that. They're like, that helps me to get out of my like emotions easier. And I'm like, yeah, it's helped
Yeah.
me. And I'm that person where I tell them, I'm like, I use these tools too. Like during COVID times when we all had to go into lockdown,
Yeah.
to pull out my own tools, and I was like, everything I thought I knew and could do before, I'm not able to do now. And I was panicking, and I was like, no, I literally pulled out my own workbooks that I created and developed from all the tools that I have
Mm.
and started doing my own workbooks. And like, so I'm like, I use these tools too. I have developed them in my own ways for me. So I think that also helps people to see like, I'm not just shoving tools at you and homework at you that I wouldn't be willing to do.
I think that's really, I think that's really interesting that you shared that as well, Blair,
Mhm.
because I think a lot of people, no matter what they do, they just assume, no matter what you do, they will just assume that because you're the expert in this, like it doesn't apply to you, or you don't experience these things because, well, why would you? Because you're the expert in this. So, you're a therapist. Why would you need therapy? No, it's not. It's just about your everyday life, isn't it? The stresses and strains of just everyday life. It doesn't have to be some big life-changing event that means that actually you need to pull out your own tools and just go, oh my gosh, I need to do something here. It's just the everyday creep of the gruel of the just the cycle of everyday life, isn't it? For parents is get up, do the kids, sort the school runs, the lunches, the whatever else. Then when they're in school, if you're in work, if you're not in work, the housework, and there's always stuff to do. And then it's picking the kids up from school, and the cycle, it's just that everyday grind, isn't it? Sometimes.
Mhm.
And sometimes it just becomes a little bit overwhelming. So it's not
Mhm.
always the big things that hit us like a steam train. It's the constant kind of build up of these little things over time, um, that um, that mean that we really need to turn to ourselves
Mhm.
and try and help ourselves. And I think we just need to be a bit kinder on ourselves, because we're really harsh on ourselves sometimes. And if one of our best friends came to us and said, oh, do you know what? I'm really feeling it today. I've just had a week from hell. I've just of this, that, and the other. You would never go to them, oh, flipping man up, or sort yourself out. Or if they say, I think I need to speak to someone, I really feel like I'm struggling and, I'm not coping very well with this. You would never be so harsh to anyone else than we are to ourselves.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It is absolutely crazy, but it's true. And we are. So I think
Yeah.
just being kinder to ourselves would be, just a massive step forward on its own. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that of like, just be nice to yourself. That's what I'm constantly telling people. I'm like, be nice to yourself. Like, we are our own worst critics. We are our own worst judges. I'm like, we really have to be nice to
mhm.
ourselves. And I'm always pushing, like, be like self-compassion. Like, we've got to practice self-compassion. We've got to like hold our boundaries, which is very hard. But like, I'm out here preaching it, but I'm also doing it as
Yeah.
well in my own
And I
way.
think I think that's fantastic that you share that,
Mhm.
because you're just sharing that you're human. You're not, as a
Yes.
therapist, you're not immune to these things.
And
Uh,
people hold therapists up on this like high pedestal. Like,
yeah,
I had a acquaintance, I shared an opinion about something on social media. It was like on my personal page. It wasn't even about anything. It was just like something that resonated with me. And she just came at me and was like, I thought you would be better because you're a therapist. I was like, but I'm a human first, and I'm allowed to have like my views and my opinions. And then I was like, you're also not my client. Like, and this is also my personal page that's private. So it's
yes,
like, you're holding me to this like perfection standard. I'm like, the therapists, we are humans. We're going to make mistakes. If I need to take a mental health day, if I'm going through something, like I lost my dog last year, and I texted, I was like, I cannot work. I cannot show up for my clients because I am grieving. I am just, and I texted them and I was very open. I said, I lost my dog, and I'm going to have to cancel our sessions. And they were like, oh my goodness, like, we are so sorry. We understand. And it goes both ways. And
yes,
that way they're open with me. Like, I don't have to share like everything. I'm like, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm sick. Like, that doesn't feel authentic. Like, I'm
yes,
like, I'm encouraging them to take care of their mental health. I need to show them like how I'm also doing it.
yes, yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
I think it's really important, really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um, Blair, you've survived domestic violence. You've survived adoption. You've
Mm-hmm.
and the trauma from that adoption. You've survived years of masking and
Mm-hmm.
societal expectations, and yet here you are, grounded, wise, and helping others. How
Mm-hmm.
did understanding your ADHD brain help you release the shame or self blame you used to carry for the places that you ended up?
I'm a creative little weirdo freak. I'm an art school kid. I'm a goth kid at heart. I never got to be a goth kid in the 90s, and now I'm like living out like my little goth dreams, and like, you know, doing all the doing all the weirdo things and listening to all the weirdo music, and like, it tickles my brain and it tickles my heart, and like, just accepting myself like as I am, and within that, like, accepting other people around me of like, I may not be, like I said at the beginning, I may not be into the same things as you, but like, I want to celebrate you. Like, for example, I'm not a Swiftie. I'm not a Taylor Swiftie girl. I just have, it just doesn't tickle me. But my girlfriends they love her, and they all went to her concert in Atlanta, and they were so funny. They were like talking about it in front of me, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we didn't even invite you because we knew you were going to come." And I was like, thanks for alleviate like relieving
Yes.
of that, like having to feel guilty of saying no. And oh yeah, girl, we knew you didn't want to come. They were like, but you're more than welcome to. We have an extra ticket. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna spend that
No.
much money on something I'm not gonna enjoy. But
Yes.
I Venmoed one of them money, and I was like, please buy a bottle of champagne, and like, I want you guys to have fun. I want you guys to have a drink on me. And they sent me a little text with all of them like toasting, and
Ah.
I want to celebrate my friends, even if I'm not into the same
Yeah.
thing. I will like listen to you talk about it, as long as you're accepting of like my weirdo crap. Like,
Yeah.
don't have to be into it, but like, let me get excited about it. I'll get excited for you. I just want some of that reciprocated. So that's me. I'm here to like celebrate all the weirdos in the world because I was never allowed to be a weirdo, and now I'm like living my weirdo dreams with my weirdo husband, and like we do our weirdo things, and he's like, "You're the person in my life. Let's let me just like be my weirdo self." And I'm like, "Yeah, we're just a couple of weirdos like living out our weirdo alien life."
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Wow. But what I mean, what does a regulated self, because you've done a lot of work on yourself, and you've obviously then done a lot of training as well. So what does a regulated self-feeling day, a regulated safe feeling day look like in your body now compared to back then?
Calm, calm.
Calm.
And
Yeah.
I talk about this with some clients because, like, I have clients that are like, "Ooh, calm feels unsettling to me." This is where I say, like, all emotions are important because some people struggle with the happy ones. They're
Yes.
like, "Oh, if I get happy, then bad's gonna happen," which I've been there. I totally get it. But it's just like being safe and being okay with that calm, being safe and being okay with a decision that I've made, even if other people don't understand it or don't like it and they feel uncomfortable. I am in a place where I'm like, I'm not in charge of their emotions or how they respond. They're allowed to feel that way. They're allowed to feel hurt or upset by me setting a boundary, but I realize I have to set a boundary and I have to do things for me because it's my health. It's my well-being. I was explaining that to my mom this morning about how I'm having to manage my stress in different ways and set different boundaries because I've got I've got mast cell activation syndrome, which like is activated by stress and histamines, and I'm like, I can't put myself in stressful situations. If I have control to not be in a stressful situation, I have to recognize that and say, like, for my own safety and well being and my health, I can't do that. And
Hmm.
so having that sense of calm and realizing I'm not in charge of other people's emotions. Like, my boundary may piss someone off, but that's not my intention. My
Yeah.
intention is to keep myself safe. So it's that sense of calm of like, even when things feel rocky and unsteady, like still having that intuition inside of me and feeling calm and confident of like other people may not understand. Maybe one day they will like understand that this wasn't about them. This was about me.
Yeah. I think it's just not people pleasing. You know, you set your stall, you set your boundaries, and then the fact that someone else reacts to your boundaries in a certain way, that's on them. You know, these are
Mm-hmm.
your boundaries. They are those, you know, they have their own boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And if they, you know, behave in a certain way because of your
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, or they feel a certain way because, well, that's on them. But I think a lot of people just feel sort of a little bit bullied into people pleasing and
Yep.
feel guilty, you know, that they have to break their own boundaries for the sake of other people's feelings sometimes. And that's really detrimental to their own mental well-being.
Yep. I mean,
But
and I think that was my masking, was I was always showing up for everybody else and going into spaces and being around people because that's what I was told. And I
yeah.
was like, well, this will be a good fit for you. This is where you need to be. Like this is what normal people do. And I'm not normal. What is normal? Like normal, what is normal? Like, what's
I,
normal to the spider is chaos to the fly, as Morticia Adams said. So
yes, absolutely. I often say, my brother often reminds me, he says, "You're not normal." I said, "I know, but what is normal?"
yes, that's what
So
I
yeah,
always
it's normal to who? Normal to who? It's normal for me, and that's all that matters, right?
it's a bad word in my book. I
Mm.
jokingly say that to my clients. They're like, "That's not normal. It's not normal."
Oh gosh, stop with the
Like,
normal. If we were all normal, we wouldn't. Well, you wouldn't have. Oh, don't. I'm not. I'm coming to the end of this, and I'm not going to start going off on a tangent now, just about normal and normality and what is normal and what's not normal. Because don't start me off.
we could
Anyway,
probably be going on forever and ever.
yes. And at the end of it, we still wouldn't give a shit. We'd just say, well, yeah, but that's okay because we're not normal. So
We're
yeah,
weirdos.
sort
It's fine.
everything else. Yeah, cool. All right, Blair. Amazing. I've really, really enjoyed this chat with you. I've loved it, and I thank you so deeply for your honesty,
Yeah.
your vulnerability, your humor, and the courage also that it takes to name the things that just so many people, so many women in particular, carry in silence.
Mhm. Yep.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I feel like this is my duty as someone who's gone through this and can share my experience. And I know not everyone feels safe to do that, and I fully respect that. But I'm like, I have a power and a platform, so to speak, to share my story and to help, to use the word I don't like, normalize this for other people. Of they're
Yeah.
not alone, you're not alone in this, and I'm here to always support people and do whatever I can to help. I'm a helper.
Thank you so much. I'm sure your story is going to sit in the hearts of so many of the listeners. The late diagnosed woman, the overwhelmed mum, the woman who has a lifetime of survival strategies and no roadmap for softness. I mean, you've just given them language,
Mhm.
validation, and hope. So I really, really thank you. And I've enjoyed this conversation so much.
Thanks for having
Bless
me.
you.
Yeah.
If to the listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, please go and show Blair some love. You can find her at Instagram. She is at Blair Buckler. Is that right?
So Blair Pfeiffer
Oh,
coaching.
you Blair Pfeiffer coaching. Sorry, my mistake. We will put the links to you and your social media in the show notes as well. Anyway,
Perfect.
um, Blair shares beautifully honest reflections and practical tools for women navigating ADHD, trauma, perimors, and identity. And as always, if you're listening and you have your own unspoken emotion, something that you've never said out loud, my inbox is open. My contact details are in the show notes too. Remember, you are not broken, you're not behind, and you're not too much. You're simply learning who you've always been without the mask. So, as always, there's strength in every step and courage in every story. Big love.